you ever noticed how your depth unsettles others? How the more thoughtful you become, the more out of place you feel. How your silence, your probing questions, and your refusal to conform to shallow norms often make people, especially women, pull back, misjudge you, or criticize what they don't understand. Søren Kierkegaard once remarked that people demand the right to speak as compensation for rarely using the right to think. But you do think. And that's exactly the issue. Your danger doesn't lie in force, but in your refusal to follow a script. In a society where predictability is mistaken for safety, a man who cannot be predicted becomes threatening just by existing. Today's relationships thrive on ease, not truth. Yet the thinking man rejects falsehood. He removes facades. He questions the nature of affection when it feels more like an exchange than a connection. He sees through the eyes of others, their rehearsed expressions, the mismatch between their words and their emotions. Kierkegaard warned us that the crowd is deception, and when a man refuses to dissolve into the masses, choosing instead a path of depth, solitude, and contemplation, he disrupts the machinery that keeps people obedient and emotionally numb. It's not intelligence itself that scares women. It's the inability to dominate a man who thinks for himself. The intellectual man doesn't depend on charm to be attractive. He doesn't chase compliments to feel masculine. He doesn't act like a character just to gain approval. He refuses to run after illusions, because he recognizes most pursuits are rooted in fantasy, not love. And when he does love, he does so with a brutal clarity, seeking truth, not comfort. This type of man, piercing, intuitive, ruthlessly sincere, is a rarity, and rare things are usually dismissed before they're ever truly appreciated. Kierkegaard explored despair in depth, though not as most would interpret it. He defined it as a deep sickness, a soul unaware of its separation from its true self. And that's precisely what modern culture fears, that men might wake up, that they might drop the charm and become conscious. Because a man who is awake cannot be bribed with praise or emotional volatility. He is no longer enslaved by the desire to be liked. And the moment a man no longer craves approval, he becomes free. And with that freedom comes a power that unnerves everyone. Ask yourself, why do you so often feel misread wherever you go? Why do people seem uncomfortable when you're quiet? It's because in today's hypervisible world, most define themselves by how much attention they get. But the intelligent man defines himself by what he observes. And to truly see others, especially those hiding, makes them squirm. Kierkegaard said that life must be lived moving forward, but only understood in reverse. Thinkers live ahead of their time, always analyzing, decoding, grasping the structures behind power, emotion, manipulation, and fear. So what happens when a man is no longer enchanted by the surface-level games? When he's no longer seduced by distraction? He becomes impossible to play, not because he's cold, but because he's complete. And that kind of completeness threatens the dating culture we know, where confusion is treated like connection, and volatility is mistaken for passion. Kierkegaard understood this. He let go of the only woman he ever truly loved, not from apathy, but because he cared too deeply. He understood that to stay true to one's path, one must sometimes give up everything, even love, if it means staying authentic. Men, take this in. The smarter you become, the more alone you may feel. That isn't failure. It's the price of being awake. People don't find you frightening because you're harsh. They find you frightening because you haven't been trained. And an untrained man can't be manipulated. That's what makes him so dangerous to systems that depend on your compliance, especially romantic ones. Most people aren't seeking love. They're looking for someone useful. They want you to fill a part: provider, performer, protector, pawn. But the man who sees clearly refuses to fit into any role. And when he opts out of those roles, he becomes invisible to those still trapped inside them. Kierkegaard called this transformation the leap of faith, choosing to abandon socially approved roles and stepping alone into the unknown, to prefer painful honesty over comforting illusions, to choose an honest despair over a fake happiness. That leap will cost you. You'll lose things. Layers will be stripped away. But it will also wake you up. Because once you begin to see the truth, really see it, you can never go back. And if your intellect is rooted in deep awareness rather than surface-level knowledge, you will stop chasing approval and start seeking meaning, purpose, or the divine. And that, more than anything, frightens people. It may even frighten you, because the path ahead isn't made for the timid. Kierkegaard once said, "To dare is to lose one's footing temporarily. Not to dare is to lose oneself entirely." And most men have already disappeared. Not due to lack of brilliance, but because they've been conditioned to apologize for it. You were taught to soften your tone, to dull your insight, to ignore what's broken, smile when it's fake, laugh when it's empty, stay quiet when something's wrong. You were trained to be likable, even at the cost of your integrity. But that kind of acceptance, the kind that demands you erase your soul, isn't love. It's surrender. And the man who refuses to surrender becomes a threat, not only to women, but to every structure built on his silence. You unsettle people not because you are forceful, but because you are sharp. Because when you speak, it resonates. Because when you look into someone, they don't feel admired, they feel exposed. And that kind of seeing is unbearable for those who still hide behind a mask. The majority of people aren't really seeking genuine connection. They're chasing comfort. They crave validation for their fantasies, not confrontation with reality. But the thinking man tears down illusions wherever he walks, especially when it comes to love. Because to him, love isn't theater, it isn't manipulation, it isn't a reenactment of unresolved childhood pain. For a man who sees clearly, love equals truth. And truth doesn't always comfort, it exposes. That's why you meet so much resistance. That's why confusion, or even hostility follows you. Your presence disrupts a culture built on appearances. You don't plead. You don't run after people. You don't repeat yourself endlessly to be understood. You walk away, not out of anger, but because your soul refuses to be bartered for cheap approval. And that man, composed, rooted, untethered, is far more threatening than any loud aggressor. He doesn't react impulsively, he decides. And making intentional, honest choices is the last true act of defiance left in the modern world. So why do thoughtful men unsettle modern women? It's not because women are superficial or cruel. It's because society has trained people to expect a performance, not real presence. And the man who operates from presence can't put on a show. He's either fully there, or he's not there at all. And most aren't ready for someone who brings all of himself. It feels too raw, too exposed, too demanding of real inner work. Kierkegaard lived this contradiction in his own life. He loved Regina Olsen deeply, but he walked away, not due to lack of feeling, but because his emotions ran too deep. He understood that his path was meant to be walked alone. His internal landscape was too vast, too wild to attach to another person. That's the burden of the deeply aware man. He craves closeness, but not at the expense of his truth. He longs for love, but refuses to fake a role to get it. He would rather face solitude than dilute his spirit for approval. That's not ego. That's integrity. And that's what terrifies people. Because deep down, everyone yearns to be chosen. But the intelligent man, he doesn't want to be chosen. He wants to be truly met. And to meet someone fully, the other must also be whole. They must have survived their own fire. They must have peeled off the lies they once lived by. And very few are truly ready for that. So they'll label you aloof, complicated, hard to love. But the truth is, you're not detached, you're clear. You don't despise women. You just no longer worship fantasies. You don't reject love. You simply refuse to mistake emotional dependency for love. You've seen too clearly to pretend otherwise, and that clarity unsettles them. You can't be manipulated. You don't follow scripts. You're not sitting around waiting for someone to define you. Kierkegaard once said that the deepest kind of despair is to never become yourself. But if you're still here, still listening, you're not like most. You want to know who you are beneath the static, beyond the roles, beyond the hunger for applause. And that path, it costs. You'll lose comfort. You'll lose status. You might even lose love. But what you gain in return, inner authority, identity, sanity, is worth far more. You'll stop seeking someone to make you whole because you'll no longer feel broken. And that, brother, is the moment you become truly powerful. Not against people, but against the machine that profits from men who are fragmented. Because the deeper you travel inward, the more the lies you were sold begin to fall apart, especially the ones about what it means to be a man in this world. Kierkegaard didn't chase success as the world defines it. He warned that the greatest danger of all, losing your identity, often happens silently, without anyone noticing. And that's exactly what has happened to countless men. A slow, quiet fading. Not of the body, but of the soul. Many have disappeared by trying too hard to please, to appear likable, to be whatever each room expected of them, until one day they catch a glimpse of themselves in the mirror and no longer recognize who they see. But a man with depth cannot keep faking it forever. The inner tension grows unbearable. He begins to realize that what others call confidence often reeks of ego. That what's praised as love is frequently just emotional dependency. That what's labeled as chemistry is sometimes unresolved trauma speaking its familiar language. He begins to truly see. And once you start seeing clearly, suffering follows. That's the toll that clarity demands. You suffer because you no longer fit in. You suffer because your questions ruin the mood. Because your insight makes others uncomfortable. Because your search for truth repels those clinging to illusion. This is the very crossroads Kierkegaard described. Conform and betray yourself to gain approval, or stay true and be cast out. Most men choose the first route. It's easier, it's applauded, but it's a slow suffocation. The intelligent man, if he has the courage, picks the second, and in doing so, he starts to live, not with ease, not in comfort, but with honesty. And that honesty changes everything. How he communicates, how he dates, how he creates, how he connects to the divine, how he decides to leave. The world isn't kind to this man, because a man who can't be manipulated by the crowd becomes a mirror to everyone still enslaved by it. Let's explore this in the realm of relationships. Why does a woman seem uneasy around a man like this? It's not because he doesn't feel, but because his way of caring is different. He doesn't pursue blindly. He watches. He doesn't shower with compliments. He pays attention. He doesn't respond to every emotional trigger like he's been trained. He picks his reactions with clarity and care. This makes him enigmatic, and mystery terrifies those who need constant emotional affirmation. He's not detached. He's selectively present. But to those used to being adored without effort, this presence feels like rejection. Yet he's not adoring. He's discerning. Because intelligence, when coupled with emotional honesty, becomes almost a psychic lens. You see through smiles, pretenses, performances, and that level of perception makes anyone still hiding deeply uncomfortable. Kierkegaard often emphasized the responsibility to become a self, not a role, not a mask, not a projection of other people's expectations, but an actual self. And becoming one demands silence, stillness, contemplation, and solitude. All things society is allergic to. Because a man who spends time alone in quiet might stop consuming, might stop conforming, might stop apologizing for existing, and worst of all, he might stop chasing things that never deserved him. Want to unsettle a room? Walk in and don't seek attention. Watch without the need to perform. Don't explain yourself repeatedly. Speak with focus. Set firm limits without raising your voice. Show kindness without submission. Be romantic without clinging. And observe what happens. People start shifting in your presence, uncertain, unsettled. Because deep down, everyone can sense when a man is rooted in himself. And most have no idea how to respond to someone who's not performing. That's the hidden edge of the intelligent man. He's not acting. And that authenticity, that's what makes him dangerous. Kierkegaard once said, "To define me is to erase me." The intelligent man defies categories. Is he cold? No. He's centered. Is he arrogant? No. He honors himself. Is he distant? No. He's intentional. But it's easier for others to slap a label on him than to self-reflect. So they reduce him to whatever makes his insight feel less threatening. But don't let that shake you. Let it sharpen your edges. Let it deepen your solitude. Let it anchor your direction. You weren't created to be digestible. You weren't built to beg. You weren't designed to be everyone's safety blanket. You were made to embody what Kierkegaard called the real man. Aware, committed to truth, and ready to walk through the storm alone if that's what it takes to preserve his soul. He warned us, the crowd is untruth. And still, most men look to that crowd for reassurance. They tie their value to applause, to admiration, to the number of hearts they can charm. But applause is a cage. It conditions you to adapt to others' approval instead of living by what's real inside you. Here's what no one told you. The more deeply you think, the quieter the applause will get. Because you've stopped entertaining the crowd, you've started serving your own soul. And most people won't celebrate that. They'll stare, they'll question, they'll retreat. You intimidate not because you're harsh, but because you're focused. In a world built on endless noise, your stillness unsettles. In a society hooked on stimulation, your refusal to jump on command feels like defiance. And it is. It's the rebellion of a man who's reclaimed his mind, his heart, and his attention. You don't owe anyone a dramatic response. You don't owe your peace to people committed to misunderstanding you. The thinking man doesn't try to win over those who've already decided not to see him. Have you noticed how uncomfortable people get when you stop oversharing? When you start protecting your mind? When your gaze reveals more than your words ever could? That's the power of a man who no longer needs to be understood by everyone. And a man like that frightens not just women, but the entire culture. Because society thrives when men stay distracted, numbed, always in pursuit. But the intelligent man doesn't pursue aimlessly. He chooses. And that choice, that grounded certainty, makes him unreadable, unplayable, untouchable. Kierkegaard called it the single individual. The man who steps away from the crowd, not out of pride, but out of loyalty to what's real within him. He walks his path alone. Not because he's disconnected, but because most roads lead to noise. And he seeks something else. He seeks truth. He seeks depth. He seeks God. However that manifests for him. Here's the paradox. The more grounded you become in yourself, the more people try to shake you. Not because you're wrong, but because you remind them of what they gave up. Their stillness, their integrity, their inner truth. And in love, this truth becomes even more apparent. A thoughtful man doesn't glorify emotional chaos. He doesn't confuse volatility with depth. He's drawn to alignment, not adrenaline. He desires calm, not a stage. When he speaks of love, it's not hormonal, it's reverent. That kind of desire, that steady, quiet, unwavering energy, can feel threatening to a woman who's only ever known affection through conflict. It might come across as cold, but it isn't. It's stable, and stability is alien to those still hooked on emotional roller coasters. But you must not shrink. Don't dull your clarity to be more digestible. Don't mask your intellect just to appear less imposing. Your role isn't to bend yourself to the confusion of the world. It's to stay rooted in what's true. And sometimes truth walks alone. Kierkegaard lived that solitude. He was ridiculed, misread, dismissed. He chose to leave the love of his life, not from absence of emotion, but because he felt too deeply. He knew his truth, his calling, couldn't coexist with the roles others expected him to play. And now that's your trial. Will you keep performing to stay comfortable? Or will you become the man you were always meant to be, even if it means being feared, misunderstood, or walking alone? The intelligent man doesn't crave popularity, he seeks inner alignment. And once you're truly aligned, the right people will see you. Not because you impressed them, but because your silence reminded them of something they forgot they had inside. So stop explaining yourself to everyone. Stop apologizing for needing solitude. Stop questioning your own clarity. You are not too much. You are simply too real for a world addicted to imitation. And the more real you become, the more isolated you might feel. But the stronger you'll stand. Because that power won't come from appearance or persuasion. It will come from your refusal to abandon your own soul. You've come this far. Don't turn back now. Because what lies beyond this path, paved with solitude, insight, and inner discipline, is more than just strength. It's freedom. And Kierkegaard understood what most never will. that true freedom costs everything you once relied on to feel accepted. He wrote, "Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Because when a man stops outsourcing his identity, when he no longer waits for permission to be himself, he faces a terrifying truth. There's no map, no applause, no one telling him he's on the right path. Just him and God and the abyss in between." That's why intelligent men frighten the world, because they stare into that abyss without flinching. They don't run to distraction. They don't numb themselves with noise. They don't stuff their schedules to escape stillness. They sit with it. They let the discomfort come, and they wrestle with the questions most avoid at all costs. Who am I without my job? Without recognition? Without someone leaning on me emotionally? Most men flee from those questions. The intelligent man builds a home in them. And when he meets a woman, he isn't looking to control her, fix her, or impress her. He wants to see her. And that kind of seeing is rare. It cuts through performance, ego, and superficial charm. It demands presence. It demands honesty. And truth? Truth burns. Because it doesn't compliment. It doesn't bargain. It just is. And a man who's anchored in truth becomes a force that can't be sweet-talked or shattered. He's not cold. He's not unkind. He's complete. You want to know why they misjudge you? Why they avoid you? Even demonize you? It's because you stopped chasing shadows. And once you do that, everyone still hiding in them starts to feel exposed. Your presence becomes uncomfortable, even silent. You become a verdict. Your standards offend, even when you don't speak them aloud. You've become a mirror. And most people hate mirrors that don't flatter. But you're not here to flatter. You're here to reflect what's real, first within yourself and then in the world around you. Kierkegaard spoke of the knight of faith, a man who lives from the inside out, a man who trusts neither reason alone nor emotion alone, but follows a deeper compass no one else can quite understand. This kind of man walks among us, mostly unnoticed. He isn't loud, he doesn't collect titles, he may not even fit society's image of success, but inside him burns a light no trend, no rejection, no loneliness can extinguish. And that's who you are becoming. The man who no longer searches for who he is, but finally embodies it. Let's not sugarcoat it. This path isn't smooth. You'll lose people along the way. You'll question who you are. There will be nights so quiet it feels deafening. You'll ask yourself if something's broken inside because the things that once thrilled you now leave you numb. You'll walk away from bonds that once felt like shelter, only to realize they were built on illusions. But in return, something unfamiliar will rise within you. A strange kind of peace. A stillness not born from external validation, but from knowing you're finally in alignment with yourself. And that peace, that inner harmony, that unwavering self-honesty is worth more than everything you left behind. So no, you're not too quiet, you're not too intense, you're not too much, you're becoming whole. And in a world addicted to fragmentation, wholeness is frightening, because it can't be manipulated, seduced, or bought. And perhaps most of all, it cannot be ignored. You're not broken, you're in the process of becoming. And what you're becoming is exactly what this world both longs for and fears. A man who cannot be moved by lies, not even the ones he used to whisper to himself. Kierkegaard believed that every man, deep within, is called to something greater than the world expects of him. Not greater in status, not in applause, but greater in truth. He once said, "What I really need is to understand what I am meant to do, not what I must know." That's the essence of your transformation. It's not about accumulating more knowledge. It's about becoming something more. Becoming what, exactly? A man no longer shaped by emotional triggers, by fleeting praise, or by shallow wants, but by a lifelong devotion to integrity, no matter what it costs. By now, you've likely felt the weight of this road, the sting of being misread, the ache of walking alone, the fatigue of being the only one in the room who sees clearly while others act blind. But here's the truth most won't tell you, that pain is sacred. That loneliness, it's not there to punish you. It's there to prepare you. Because once you've learned to stand alone, to embrace the silence, to witness without reacting, to love without losing yourself. Then, and only then, do you become truly untouchable. The man who embraces Kierkegaard's insights isn't afraid of being left behind, because he no longer seeks to be chosen. He has chosen himself, and that changes everything. It transforms how you love. You stop seeking someone to rescue you from silence, and instead look for someone who respects it. It changes how you work. You no longer perform just for a paycheck, but build something that reflects who you are. It changes how you live, no longer fleeing discomfort, but led by alignment. And that alignment makes you rare, not because you've elevated yourself above others, but because you've faced what most men run from, the overwhelming brightness of your own potential. Most people retreat from it. They settle, they comply, they disappear into what's easy. But you heard the whisper, you followed it, through uncertainty, through heartbreak, through being mocked. And now, here you are, not perfect, not finished, but free. And that freedom, quiet as it may appear, is louder than any act you could perform. You've learned to walk away from what dishonors your soul. You've learned to say no, not to harm, but to guard what's sacred. You've realized that peace doesn't come from being surrounded. It comes from refusing to betray yourself. You've discovered that love isn't a contract, it's a reflection. And the woman who deserves the depths of your spirit isn't the one who flatters your ego, but the one who understands your silence and chooses to remain beside it. Maybe she'll arrive, maybe she won't, but you won't wait in desperation. You'll walk your road alone if needed, whole either way. Kierkegaard spent his life in solitude, but it wasn't empty. His pain became poetry. His questions became fire. His words became a path for men like you, men who feel deeply, think critically, and refuse to wear a mask for anyone's comfort. So if they misunderstand you, good. If they fear you, good. If they label you as distant, arrogant, or cold, good. That means you've stopped being easy to swallow. It means you've stepped off the surface. It means you've started to matter. Because this world doesn't need more agreeable men. It doesn't need more charm. It doesn't need more well-trained actors. It needs men, true men, men who know who they are, who walk silently, who love without abandoning themselves, who speak when it matters, and vanish when it doesn't. Men so loyal to their truth that not even love can make them betray it. And if you are one of those men, or becoming one, remember this. You won't be for everyone, but for the few who truly see you, you'll be unforgettable. You won't be idolized by the masses, but you'll earn the respect of the rare. And most of all, you will respect yourself. In the silent hours, in the painful decisions, in the long nights when you choose your soul over applause, depth over performance, solitude over shallow connection. And that is everything.